Welcome back to another edition of Special Situations Investing with Greg. This week I'll be answering a question from one of my subscribers. Check it out. Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of my YouTube channel on Special Situations Investing and my personal investing practice. As a quick disclaimer, this video is for educational purposes only. Any companies that I mention in this presentation are discussed solely for illustrative purposes. Discussing such companies and the specifics about them is to help educate me and educate you about certain special situations. It is not a solicitation to purchase them. I recommend that you conduct your own research and identify why you might want to own the company yourself prior to your committing of any funds. I also recommend that you seek the services of a financial advisor that has considered your personal situation as your fiduciary. And then finally, may your education here grow your knowledge, improve your personal investing performance, and give you the confidence to take control of your future. Thanks a bunch for watching. Now on to the video. Hello, mutant investors. Part of the reason why I run this channel is I wanted to create a channel or a resource for people that were interested in investing in special situations that wasn't there when or at least I seemed to have a hard time finding it when I first started investing in special situations. As a result, when someone reaches out to me with a question that I had when I first started investing, I find that it's very important to me to spend my time and answer that question as best as I can. And this brings us to a question that I received from Ben this last week. Ben says, I'm extremely interested in spin-offs, but I am struggling with valuations. I never know where to find the financial statements, and even less how to analyze them to obtain a fair value for a spin. I was wondering if you had a step-by-step tutorial about how to value a spin-off, from where to find the documents to the final numbers. First of all, Ben, thank you for sharing this question. I think that this is something that's good for me as the creator of this channel to remember that sometimes the people that are watching me don't always know where to begin. And I get that because I remember having a very similar question when I first started looking at special situations, and I read Joel Greenblatt's book about you can be a stock market genius. And so I spent my time looking at that and trying to understand how I can do it, and I did a lot of digging in order to get the answer that you are looking for, and I'm going to answer the question in two videos. So the first question that you have was, where do you find the information, which is what we'll talk about today. And then the second question is how do you do the valuation? On your first question, how do you find the information about spinoffs? I'm going to answer this question as someone that is from the United States because that's where most of my experience is from. But I know that other stock markets will also have a similar process that you can go through in order to get the information that you need for your investment practice. For a spinoff, the first thing that you need to do is you need to find the information that is required in order to make a knowledgeable decision on the investment. In the United States, the SEC governs this information, and they have a good repository of all the information that you should be expected to see, or you should expect to see, that you can go ahead and you can dig into it, and you can find out more information about specific spinoffs. When a company decides to participate in a spinoff or spin off a portion of its business, it files what's called a Form 10-12B. And I'm going to walk you through how this goes. And so take a look. We'll see you on the other side. So we begin at the sec.gov website, and we go here. And I start here at the filings page. So there's a bunch of different places. I mean, there's lots of different things to look at, and it's quite fascinating if you're ever interested. But right here, company filing search, and just click right there. And then you're going to go over here to Edgar full text search. So you're going to come here to the Edgar Advanced Search Web. It gives you full text electronic filing since 2001. So basically 20 years of data, and it's all through PDFs and things like that that go that are part of the SEC website through their Edgar search program. You can identify the company by the company name, keyword, ticker, or CIK number of the or individual's name. So you can go ahead and you can search for all sorts of things in here. But what we're going to do is we're going to answer Ben's question, and we're going to look for specifically where do I find filings that are part of the filing that you would get when you are investing in spinoffs. So I go here, I go to browse filing types. Now, this may be overwhelming when you first see this, but these are all the different filings that you would expect to see, because these are all the different filings that the SEC requires to be filled out. And if you've done investing for a while, some of them should be familiar to you. Like a 10K is an annual filing that is required for every company in the United States that has a public listing on a stock or bond exchange. And then the 10Q is their quarterly statement for the same reason. But what we are looking for is for companies that are participating in spinoffs. And companies that participate in spinoffs file this form. It's a 10-12B, as we spoke about earlier. So we're going to go here. We'll click this filter button here. And then in this case, we're looking back about 5 years, and we have 295 search results. Now, not all of those, that doesn't mean that there were 295 spinoffs in the past 3 years. What it means is there are 295 spinoff registration statements with the 10-12Bs. Now, there is also something to pay attention to. A lot of these are duplicates, because this is a form that you get filed once, and you have a requirement, the company has a requirement to start the filing process, and then they do amendments as they go about it. And you'll actually see that in the example that we're going to use today. We're going to look at Aaron's. And they had an original form 10-12B that was filed back on November 2nd in 2020. And then the most recent version is an amended version that was completed on the 18th of November in 2020. And so we'll look at that one because that one's the most recent one. And it's, in my view, it's going to have the most information. Now, you can read all the information from this page right here if you want, but I find that I like to have a full screen. So I click this open filing, and this takes you back to a little bit older version of the Edgar search function. And the Edgar search function did have this little section right here where you could identify all the different things, little graphics, all those things. But what we are looking for is this exhibit 99.1. And part of the reason that I found this is because I was digging into the size when I first started investing in special situations. And I was like, well, what does this do? And what does this do? And I found that when I clicked on these, then I could look at it, and it was usually much more straightforward and easier to understand. So I click here, and I have here this letter from John W. Robinson III. And he's talking about, hey, we're planning on separating our Aaron's business from our progressive leasing segment. And they're going to talk about, we're going to do it through the means of a spinoff, and the newly formed company will be named Aaron's Company or Aaron's Spinco. And then you can identify, this is the CEO of the company that's getting rid of this company. And then if you look at this next one, then you have Aaron's. And the new company CEO, his name is Douglas Lindsay, he's saying, hey, welcome to being an investor in my company. We realize that you're going to go ahead and have shares if you don't sell your progressive or your Aaron's shares at this time, and you will have shares in both Aaron's and progressive leasing at the end of this. And then you get into this information statement, and this identifies some of the things that you should be looking at. I usually read these 2 pages. I read this, and then I usually go to this table of contents, and then I skip ahead to this information statement summary. And I like to read this whole section. Part of the reason is it gives you an idea of what the new company, or the spin-off company is going to be looking at, and what kind of business that they have. And it usually gives a pretty good, 30,000 foot overview of the things that you should be looking at.
In this one, they identify, they're not required by any means to identify what they're supposed to put into this section, but usually this is kind of like a sales pitch. So they're going to identify the things that they think will convince you as a potential shareholder to either invest in it after the spinoff, or as a shareholder of the parent company to keep your money in with this spinoff company. And then they'll identify, what's their competitive advantages, the strategic priorities in this case. They don't always have to follow the same flow, but this is a pretty good flow for normal business investment pitch. They also talk about their risk factors. This happened in the middle of COVID, so something to pay attention to. They're definitely going to be talking about that a couple of times in that. And then they have some risks that are related to the separation and distribution. You should read, again, all of this stuff and make sure that you understand it as you go into these special situations. The second thing is this separation and distribution. So now they're going to say, hey, this is what the action that we're taking and the reason why we do it. And this is usually, these reasons for separation is usually a really good area to at least understand. Sometimes you have to read between the lines though, so just be aware of that, because sometimes they'll just throw out the buzzwords as this is the reason why we're doing this, because we want to have improved strategic focus, or this is operational improvements or things like that. They're going to be talking about those things to help you in their way, to help you understand what they're doing. Sometimes I trust the management, sometimes I don't. Just make sure that you read it from the lens that you also need to verify what they're doing. The corporate information, this is where the new company is going to be placed. And then the reason why they furnish the information statement. And then finally, this spot that Ben was talking about, hey, where do I find the numbers? Well, this is the beginning of where you can find the numbers, but we're not going to get into that today. Like I said, we'll talk about that in the next video. But this is where you start. This is a summary of the historical combined financial data for both Aaron's and Progressive Leasing. And this is all of the operating results that they had for the past 5 years, all of their gross profit and cost of revenue numbers, their operating losses, their operating expenses, the financial position that they had at the end of each year. And then they get into what I consider probably one of the more valuable areas, and that is the questions and answers about a separation and distribution. So if you want to learn more about spinoffs, one of the great areas to do is to read through this stuff and identify what it is that they're talking about. And a lot of it is it's going to feel like canned language after you've read it a couple of times. And you'll start honing in on the things that are really important to you. For me, I always like to look at the record date for the distribution, because that tells me if it's before or after the spinoff that is going on. I also like to spend some time making sure that I know that the difference between the record date and the distribution date. So you may not know as a newer investor what the record date is. Record date is if you own the shares of a company on the record date, then the action that is being taken, in this case a spinoff, will then be in effect for the shares that you own. But the action won't occur on the record date, they'll occur on the distribution date. Because what happens is they have to aggregate everybody's shares and make sure that they have it all right. They probably do some quick auditing of what's going on, and then they split off the shares. And in this case, the record date is on the 27th. And then if you had the share, you owned the shares on the 27th, then on the November 30th, then you would go ahead and receive, or you would be able to be, you would receive the distribution of those shares. The next thing that you look down on here, you can see that how many shares of the parent company will happen. So parent will distribute to you 1 share of Aaron's Spinco common stock for every 2 shares of the parent common stock held by you as the close of the business day on the record date for the distribution. So in this case, this is a spinoff. It's a 2-for-1 spinoff. So every 2 shares that you have of the parent company, you're going to get 1 share of Aaron's SpinCo in this spinoff. And then talks about the conditions of the distribution. When you're doing any type of special situation, again, same type of thing. You should be reading through these so that you can understand what it is you are participating in. This is particularly important when you're spending your time looking at tender offers and also tender offers for mergers. And then you can dig through all of these. I would recommend that you guys take a look at all of this, identify what it is, read until this box if you want to understand the spinoff that you're looking at. You don't have to look at Progressive, but I just wanted to get something that was repeatable that people could go back to and look at and identify what it is that you're looking at when you're participating in spinoff investing.
And that brings us back to our question. So where do you find them? The very first place that you go when you're investing in spinoffs is I go to the SEC.gov website, and I go to that search function that we identified in the video, and then I go ahead and I finish it up by identifying which form I need to find that's appropriate for the special situation that I'm investing in. Hope that helps for you, Ben. And then next week I'll spend a little bit of time talking about valuation. It's always good to have a refresher on it, but I also know how difficult that can be sometimes when you're first getting started on how do you do the work in order to come up with a good number for it. I appreciate you all for watching today, and if you have any questions like Ben did, please go ahead and post them in the comments or send me an email. And if you think that I missed anything, please let me know as well. I really appreciate any inputs that you might have. And if you like this video, please smash the like button. It does help me out to continue to create and make as high quality of a content as I possibly can. And if you have not yet subscribed, I don't know why you wouldn't after a video like this, but anyway, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you next week. Thanks a bunch.